I don't know if you just want to give her a minute to join, or if you want to go ahead and get started since we do have a quorum.
So I was getting ready to ask you, do you have something you have to read first because part of this, or because it's hybrid?
Yeah, we have that usual hybrid statement. I can read that off really quick.
Okay. So let me just see. We've got Brad, Adam, John, Kate. Is there anybody else from the committee that's supposed to join besides Christina?
Kay Emerson is the last remaining commissioner. I did not receive a confirmation or anything from the Zoom registration that she would be joining us today.
Okay.
But I believe other than that, all other members of the committee are present in the room, in the Zoom room.
Okay, and none of them are present in person, correct?
No.
Okay, let me see if Christina's joined yet. Got 21 now, so let's just, yep, Christina's in. So looks like we're ready to go. So do you read your thing first? It's been a few months, so.
Yeah, we were having the same discussion earlier when we were setting up. Yeah, I can go ahead and read that, and then I can just do a brief overview of the agenda today.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yep. So good afternoon. Sorry. So good afternoon. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the city's YouTube channel and public access channel 25. During the meeting, when you are not participating, please mute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon in the lower left-hand side of the Zoom menu next to the video icon. Muting your microphone during the meeting will make it easier for everyone to be able to hear. In some cases, I may mute or unmute people as needed to minimize distractions during the meetings. You can turn your video camera on and off by clicking the video icon in the menu. For purposes of the public meeting, when you are participating in the meeting, please keep your video on. And when you are not participating in the meeting, please turn your video off. Turning your video off when you're not participating will help make sense about who is active, who is speaking at any given time. And in some cases, I may turn off someone's video if they're not actively participating to avoid any distraction. All motions will need to be stated clearly. After a motion is made and seconded, the chair will call on board members individually to provide their vote. When public comment is sought on an item, individuals participating via Zoom should use the raise your hand feature. Windows and Mac users can access this feature through the participants button at the bottom of their screen. Individuals will be called upon by name in the order they appear on the meeting screen. When you're called on, please unmute your listening device, turn on your video and state your name before speaking. The chair will then call for any in-person public comment for those without access to technology options. And then currently we have no one here, but just in case, we'll direct them to use the podium and things like that if they need to. So that covers the hybrid spiel. Let's go ahead and get to the agenda. So the agenda today, like every other meeting, we start off by approving minutes. And then today we also have a request from the Community Children's Center for industrial revenue bond financing to obtain a sales tax exemption. We also have the 2021 annual economic development report, something we unfortunately haven't been able to get to you all before today, mainly because we do meet irregularly and we wanted to, it is not as long of an item, so we didn't, in the best interest of everyone's time, we wanted to be able to wrap it into something else, but we do have that for you today. So with that, Chairwoman, if you have any other items before we move into the first agenda of approving the minutes, we can start with that.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. So the first item on our agenda is to approve the June 15th, 2022 meeting minutes. I'm sure we can all remember that meeting. Does anybody have any comments or a motion or anything?
Michelle, this is John Matthews. I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
All right. Any
Michelle,
second?
it's Brad Burnside. I would second.
All right, so we do have a motion on the table made by John and seconded by Brad to approve the June 15th meeting minutes. So I'll do a roll call vote. Brad Burnside?
Aye.
Adam Ritchie?
Aye.
John Matthew?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Sorry, I went blank on your last name, Lorenz. Sorry.
It's like
Christina,
Madonna.
yeah. Christina Gentry?
Christine Gentry, aye, yes.
Patrick Kelly?
Abstain.
Okay. And I am an aye. So we have 6 in favor and 1 abstain, and the motion passes. So thank you, everyone. Before we move to the next agenda item, any questions on that? Oh, all right. So agenda item number 1 is to consider a request from the Community Children's Center for Industrial Revenue Bond Financing to obtain a sales tax exemption on construction materials and labor to renovate their new service facility located at 346 Main Street, Lawrence, Kansas. So does the city want to speak on this first?
Yeah, there we go. Too many screens, gotta make sure I'm muted and unmuted. Yeah, so we have a technical report that was included in the agenda packet. I can go ahead and do a brief overview of that. I'm not gonna go into too much detail because I don't want to steal the thunder from, the Community Children's Center who is here today. So I will just do a brief overview of some of the technicals. So as far as the overview, it is a project renovation. So it's not a new construction. It's an existing building that they're going to be doing some refurbishments. It's located at 346 Main Street. The building size itself is 36,000, but the renovation will only be on 15,000 square feet. And the Children's Center has some more details on where and what that'll look like. The total capital investment for the project is estimated right now at $5.3 million. They estimate adding 30 new full-time jobs within the first couple of years, first 1 to 2 years. The estimated construction start date is January 2nd or shortly thereafter of 2023, and they hope to have the facility operational by July 2024. The project, in terms of the city's IRB review criteria, very similar to a lot of the community development projects the board has seen before, most recently the DACA project. This does cover a lot of the same ground. So we weren't really, while there were aspects of economic development in terms of job growth and things like that, this project itself has some unique components to it that we think will add maybe not measurable value in terms of how we track it, but it will definitely add community value intrinsically. Zooming out a little. In the past, this is just a list of previously authorized IRBs. Currently, we have, in terms of community projects or outstanding nonprofit projects that have IRBs, we have the Heartlands Health Center, the Cedarhurst Living Center, which is actually currently under construction right now, and the DECA facility. And then this is just a history of the matured IRBs we have for all of the other community development projects we've done in the past. In terms of estimated sales tax savings, with the $5.3 million in estimated capital investment, the estimated sales tax on that project would be roughly $500,000. This table provides a breakdown of exactly where that sales tax would have been distributed to, but is being foregone with the sales tax savings as part of that. And with the IRB origination fees, similar to the DECA project, because this is a registered nonprofit, a registered 501c3, it is the city staff's recommendation that we forego the origination, the IRB bond origination fee. So the table below just provides an estimate of savings on behalf of the organization and what could be seen as a loss on part of the city. And this is mainly just some actions. We're here today to cover this, the perks portion, and then afterwards it'll go back to the City Commission for their review and approval. So with that covers our technical report. Unless anybody has any questions, I think we can go ahead and let the Children's Center go ahead and present.
Sounds great. Who's presenting on behalf of the center?
So representing the Community Children's Center is the Executive Director, Kim Polson. Then she's also joined in the room by Brandon Dahl, who's their main general contractor. And then online, we also have Steve Wise, who's the project lead from Bartlett and West.
All right, so Kim and Brandon are in person and Steve is online. I see Steve in the, okay,
Yep.
Great. Right, well, it is your time.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate being here. Again, I'm Kim Polson with the Community Children's Center. I'm here to tell you a little bit about the Early Childhood Community Center effort that is happening in our community and our work specifically towards that here in Lawrence and Douglas County. But first, I'd like to share a little bit about Community Children's Center and where we've been, where we've come from. Many individuals are not familiar with our organization, and I want to make sure that everybody's aware that we've been around quite a while. A 501c3 in Lawrence since 1965. We were founded through the work of Plymouth Congregational Church with their Social Action Committee, and then partnered with Plymouth Head Start and Community Children's Center to implement the Head Start program that still exists within their building. And that happened in 1966. And if you'll recall, when President Obama visited town, that was one of the places that he chose to visit on his trip to Lawrence. In 2017, we began to focus on a more trauma-informed model, moving forward with other entities in our community and how trauma impacts early childhood. In 2018, as often happens, the federal government made a decision that had a direct impact on the Head Start organizational structure. The role that we played in terms of day-to-day management was actually eliminated in the org structure, and that Head Start program went under the umbrella of ECAN, who is already serving as administrative support for 8 other counties. So at that point, our board, our nonprofit board of directors, had an opportunity to see what CCC could do at that point in time. How would things shifted and what gaps in early childhood systems existed where we might be able to fill those gaps, making it a stronger early childhood infrastructure for Lawrence. What do we value? I just want to give you a little bit of an understanding of where we are coming from, not only in the work that we do, but also as we approach the building of and renovation of 346 Main Street, wanting to make sure that this is a collaborative effort throughout our community, that the end product is inclusive in nature, and that we are honoring lived experience as we work through the process of getting stories and input from families and young children in our community. So I want to give you a little bit of a picture about early childhood care and education in Lawrence and Douglas County statistically. So everyone has a baseline understanding of the need that is in our community and how we'll then approach filling some of that need. So we know that there are 7,362 children under the age of 6, and these are Douglas County numbers because that's how it's reported to Child Care Aware at the state level. But we all know that the majority of those, a significant portion, are right here within Lawrence. For every one opening for a child under the age of 3, there are 10 children who could fill that spot. We also know that the numbers of childcare facilities that are able to provide evening, weekend, or overnight care are very low in our community. We actually only have one entity that can provide overnight care at this point in time. Obviously, there's some areas there where we think we might be able to provide additional support for our community. $13,628 for the average annual cost for an infant care in Douglas County and Lawrence, more than the tuition and fees for the University of Kansas. We also know that we do not have enough early childhood care and education in our community. Out of 100 kids, there'd be spots for 47. The other 53 would be in a position where their parents, caregivers would have to make some difficult decisions about how they were going to provide care for their child. A lot of times that means one of the 2 parents or any caregiver leaving the workforce in order to do that. So overall, we know that our need for additional childcare slots is at almost 3,000. If every parent who wanted and needed to engage in the workforce was able to do that. We know that one building is not going to solve all these problems, but we do know it can make a big impact. And the more thoughtfully we approach this model, we'll see the impact ripple across our community. We also are founded in the work from the Community Health Plan to Reduce Poverty. I was part of the process of the Children and Child Care Plank for the Community Health Plan to Reduce Poverty. And we have embedded those goals, strategies, and objectives into our work as we move forward with the Early Childhood Community Center, because we know that the achievement gap is seen at very early stages for income level and race. We can see this prior to kindergarten. And so addressing early care and education can go a long way towards having positive impacts on future economic stability and reducing the disparities. This is the model that we're moving forward with. And again, this is not necessarily about one specific location. This is the model conceptually for our entire county. And that is a 4-pronged approach. One, with the family-friendly workplace. We know that early childhood professionals can only do so much. We also know that businesses and employers have an investment that they can make in our early childhood systems by adopting family-friendly workplace practices. The 3-prong model for the actual programming is a family resource center, which provides wraparound services for families with children 5 and under. Part of that strategy is the earlier we engage those families with those resources and our collaborative partners in the community, the longer they will have those resources available to them throughout their life and their children's lives. We're definitely taking a multi-generational approach to our work in that we know we need to care for the children, but in caring for the children, we must also care for the family. An early childhood professional support network. This is a means by which we can provide additional support for existing early childhood professionals in Lawrence, but also by helping them walk through the process of establishing their own childcare facilities, going through the licensing process with KDHE, making sure that they've got access to high quality curriculum materials at no cost to them, and just creating the most sustainable program they can as a business owner and entrepreneur. Part of the way we're embedding this into the Early Childhood Community Center at 346 Main Street would be a business incubator model where emerging professionals could spend up to a year working within our child care facility and be in that supportive environment in the moment, coaching, mentoring, and then the support as they move out to establish their own early childhood facilities. By doing this, we feel we'll be able to reach further across our community, but in doing so in a supported way and with those quality standards that would be within our building that will go with them as they establish their own facilities. So with childcare and education, we are planning on 7 classrooms within the 346 Main Street, that each of those classrooms could have between 8 and 10 children. Some of that, if you're familiar with licensing regulations, will be dependent upon the age of those children. But our intent is to focus first and foremost on infants and toddlers because we know it is the community's greatest need. So we are looking to fill that gap that most early childhood centers and home-based providers may not be able to fill because it's not as financially feasible to run your own business on a small scale with caring for infants and toddlers due to staffing ratios. I'll turn it over to Brandon, who's going to cover some of the project information, and then we'll have Steve join us virtually to talk a little bit more after that.
Good afternoon. My name is Brandon Dahl. I'm with Dahl Construction out of Lawrence, Kansas. I wanted to just briefly go over our design and our timeline and our square footage costs right now. So we're about plus or minus 15,000 square feet on our involvement on the project size. We've given a preliminary cost of $5.275 million, and our design start date is aggressive, and we're wanting to get this facility open. Right now, we're in the design phase and discovery phase of this project, and so we're wanting to get demolition started in the month of December, and we want to do completion and occupancy by January of 2024. Right now, we're still in the design discovery phase, and so we have a square footage number. We don't have a detailed number set out just yet. That is forthcoming soon. But right now, Steve Wise and Bartlett West will open it up to where we're in the design phase to kind of let you know where we're at with that discovery process, so we can get our budget down to an itemized list for you folks to take a little scrutiny over. But right now, the discovery phase is going quickly, and I think we're moving along swiftly on it. And Timberly French down the city has been most helpful with us going through this right now. She's our lead point down there. And after that, I'll turn it over to Steve Wise from Bartlett West to discuss the design phase.
Yeah, and I will just, because you're controlling the podium up there, if Steve needs to, yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. If somebody advances the slide, that will help. All right. So this is Steve Wise, Bartlett and West, working with Kim and Brandon on this. And so, as Brandon has indicated, the phase we're in now is the pre-design phase. And so what we're really spending a lot of time doing is the code research, but also really working with Kim to understand her program needs and how we can make that function within this existing building. So if you look at this floor plan, and I will say this is still in development, but it gives you a fairly good idea. The intent being that really the basement, there's not a lot of room, but the nice thing is there is an open area that can be used for a commercial kitchen. So the bulk of the spaces will be provided on the main level. It's not really second floor, but more the main level. But grouping the 7 classrooms, as Kim indicated, they're in that south portion with a medical suite in a lobby. And then on the north portion, where they have more volume, we're looking at a play community room, and that really becomes your family resource center. So that's the play community room, which can be used not only during the daycare hours, but possibly for after hours events as well. And then offices. And the intent with the offices is they are used for staff, but they can also be meeting rooms where families in a variety of sizes can meet and have private conversations. So the intent is to have both smaller and larger rooms that can accommodate those conversations. So the intent too is to also have a community store, and that would allow people to not only be able to buy some type of supplies, but also ready to go meals that can either be prepared offsite or on site. So this gives you just a very high level, at the plan we're looking at. And as you can see in the upper left, the diagram, that's why it's about 50% of the building is currently being renovated for this program effort. So if we go to the next slide, please. And this just provides everybody just a quick shot of the inside. And this is actually looking in that family resource play area. So the intent is with the sloped ceilings, the volume, some clear story windows, our goal is to really provide an open, inviting play area with a variety of surfaces for the children to interact. So that gives you a high level, again, of where we are with the plan, working with Kim to get the program in place and provide her with the facility that will allow her to accomplish her mission. And then actually next slide. So the other piece of this too to touch on as we go through the design, and this is just a very high list, but the intent is as we look at sustainability, it's not so much about a checklist, but making this a rewarding facility, one that we're dealing with low VOC materials, recycling wherever we can, but really focusing on the occupant comfort. So both for staff and children, the enhanced air quality, acoustics, access to daylight, durable materials, but ones that are, easy to touch, but easy to clean. So kids can, really use all of their senses in the space. So we'll be looking at mechanical equipment, how we can provide that, and then working with Kim and Brandon on both the materials and just design to make this an inviting, rewarding space for everybody.
Okay. Steve, did you have anything else?
I do not.
Okay. So that's our efforts in a nutshell. Glad to take any questions, answer any questions if anyone has any they would like to ask. Follow up.
Thank you, Brandon, Kim, and Steve. Committee, what questions do we have?
Kim, do you mind just unsharing so that we can see everyone's face up there?
Oh, there I am. I'm sorry, I turned it off. So, all right. So, committee, it's open up to your questions.
Hi, this is Christina Gentry. Kim, thank you for this this presentation. And I also note that a lot of stakeholders were responsible in this collaboration, including the Chamber, Success by Six, the Health Department. And you did list through your presentation, you addressed a number of disparities, including talking about racial disparities. I'm going to specifically go to that slide because you touched upon it, but being that I kind of I've watched this project from afar a little bit because I also used to have a history of childcare back in my past, and I thought this is a really great project. So I was really happy to see the movement. But Kim, could you go a little bit more into some of that, the context and how this need of childcare and this pilot project was envisioned, specifically diving into the racial disparities point, because I know at some point we were talking, or there was talk about this project, and I say we, I don't mean me, I mean we collectively, like our community. But we were talking about this project having a prioritized population and demographic, and it really touching on our Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and how this project of the children who identify as BIPOC children and their families would benefit from employment opportunities and others, as well as the community as a whole. But I kind of want to really dive into the project's onus and how the focus population and the demographics was placed in there. And this kind of run us through a little bit of the data and the history and the context of how, before this became a space available at 346 Main, what the process was in discovering the disparities and understanding the real need in the focus population, the priority population of our community. And this is still, if this is still a prioritized population for this pilot project. So a 2-point question, really more of an address of, can you address the racial disparities and how you guys came to understanding this is a definite need before you got the Main Street building, but then also kind of, is it still a priority population that you envision in this process of moving children into this area, families into this building, and just kind of maybe what you still envision, Kim, moving forward with this?
Sure, absolutely. As I mentioned, I was involved with the children and childcare plank of the anti-poverty plan, which, as Christina, I believe you were involved in that work as well, and many individuals in Lawrence and Douglas County were heavily involved in the research that went into informing the strategies, goals, and objectives related to children and childcare in that anti-poverty plank. And that was prior to knowing that any building would be available for this type of purpose. It was more an overall strategy for how we want to approach both from the child perspective as well as from the early childhood professional perspective to increase representation of BIPOC family and families of color within those within the early childhood sector. One thing we want to do is we absolutely are looking to increase wages, which we know is something that if early childhood is typically below a $12 an hour position. And we know that historically that there have been a high number of primarily women of color who have served in these roles. We know that looking at innovative strategies to increase wages within the early childhood sector will benefit that population as well as all early childhood professionals in our community. Some of the strategies we're looking at are collaborative relationships that haven't existed to date, and that includes bringing in our employers and our private sector to engage in a community investment with us, because we do now know that early childhood care is an economic development driver for our community because people cannot go to work if they do not have childcare. So it's grounded in and based in serving families of color, but we also acknowledge that all families within our community have unique challenges from birth to 5, other than any other point in their life. It's at a point in the life where there are not structures in place like a public school system in order to support those families to help break cycles of poverty and trauma. So we are definitely pursuing from a perspective of how do we serve the most vulnerable and marginalized within our community. And we do believe that is our families of color, as well as our single parent families, wanting to provide resources and affordable, high quality childcare. We also have taken that work and looked at, in terms of breaking those cycles of poverty for families from the multi-generational perspective, knowing that we want to make sure that those families who have had historically been underrepresented and underserved, that we are able to meet those needs and create a space. We talked about this so much with the design build team about how we want to make sure every family who enters the space feels like they belong and that they are welcomed within that space, because we know that that first step in, even if it's to come in and play within that space, it's the first step toward a trusted relationship where we can then provide additional services for families to better support, particularly our BIPOC families and our families who are in a predicament in terms of potentially only having one caregiver providing for them. And we also are acknowledging our grandparents who are raising grandchildren as well, because we know there are some specific populations that need and deserve to have additional supports and access available to them as they raise the next generation.
Thank you, Kim. That was very helpful.
All right. Any other questions?
Hi, this is Kay. I just want to, no questions, just a general comment here. I want to say thank you guys for coming in today. What your work is unmeasurable, and being able to address generational poverty for the families that you're hoping to support. So I just want to take some time and say thank you for being in the space today.
Thank you, Kay.
Thank you, Kay. All right. Any other questions?
Madam Chairman, this is Brad Burnside. I would move that we adopt the city's recommendation for approval of this sales tax exemption as presented.
All right.
This is Kay. I would second that motion.
All right. That was Kay. All right. So we do have a motion on the table to approve the request from the Community Children's Center for the industrial revenue bond that was placed by Mr. Burnside and seconded by Ms. Emerson. Are there any other questions before we take a roll call vote? All right, I'm going to do a vote. Brad?
Aye.
Adam?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Christina?
Yes.
Patrick?
Aye.
Kay?
Aye.
And I am an aye. So with 8 votes in favor, and we did pass to recommend the approval of the industrial revenue bond financing for the Community Children's Shelter. Thank you, everyone, on that, and thank you to our presenters.
Thank you.
Thank
All right,
you.
good. We look forward to seeing that. All right, and the next item on our agenda is to review the 2021 annual report, economic development support and compliance. So I'm going to just pass it over to Britt and Sam.
Yep. So I'm going to go ahead and share. I'm just going to run through the presentation that was on the agenda today, not the full report itself. Okay, there we go. Yep. So as Michelle mentioned, this is the 2021 annual report. So although it is coming a little late in the year, this report is typically done and brought to the commission and PERC in May. So we typically do the year before. So what is the report? It is a comprehensive review of all of our active economic development programs and participating projects. The full report itself covers our economic development program participants, mainly developers or individual companies, project performance, how well those projects are doing. A lot of the times a lot of our incentives involve tax abatements or tax reimbursements that the taxing jurisdictions still recover a portion of that. So it's really looking at, did the investment that the city made, is the city and the county still seeing a return on that in some way, as well as the economic development partner activities. The city engages work with the Chamber of Commerce, KU Innovation Park, the Small Business Development Center, and Peasley Tech to kind of broaden our range of activities we can do. So this report kind of covers what they did over the past year and obviously the financials of that. So why is this report needed? Mainly for transparency. We want to be able to provide the committee and the public a complete picture of, who we're helping, what kind of incentives they're receiving, and what the return to the city and ultimately the taxpayer is. It also helps us at the city track and monitor how well those things are going, as well as for general budget purposes. What do we need to account for next year, and what kind of growth are we seeing in our own budget as a result of the success of these projects? It also provides data for the community goals, mainly through our strategic plan. A lot of the city's activities now revolve around that plan, so we want to make sure we're tracking that and providing those numbers to the public to see that we are moving the needle on some of the things that we all found important through that plan. So how is it used? Mainly to educate and inform the city, the public, the committee about what our incentives are, what do they do, how do they see a return. Again, supporting transparency, evaluating outcomes through the strategic plan, as well as providing historical record of the economic development support. It's one of the ways that we help determine what kind of projects maybe work best, or incentives or types of developments we see the biggest return on, either in financial value or in job outcomes or things like that. So the economic development programs are split into two. So we have pay-go or pay-as-you-go programs. These are mainly property tax involved. So we have property tax abatements, the industrial revenue bonds like we just discussed, as well as neighborhood revitalization areas, tax increment financing, and transportation development districts. A lot of these run on what we call the increment of the tax value. I won't go too far into that. I think we get into that a little later, but and we also provide some direct support. So these are the agencies that we had spoken about before, the Chamber, Peasley Tech, KU Innovation Park. These are a lot of the things you see on the bullet points are what we see as like the governance model for what these other agencies can assist the city in doing. So now we're just going to run through some of the progress for each of the pay-go programs that we had discussed. So these are the currently listed Catalyst property tax abatements. The Catalyst program is our kind of fast track property tax incentive for industrial property around the city, mainly in Lawrence Venture Park and East Hills Business Park, but as well as any industrial general zone land in the city. So right now we have a few new construction projects and a few expansions that are on our list of Catalyst projects. I would say our newest ones are the U.S. Engineering and Standard Beverage. Those wrapped up pretty recently. Moving on to the non-Catalyst property tax abatements. We don't see this one quite as often anymore because the Catalyst is so popular, but we do have a few. The Grandstand project, their tax abatement wrapped up this tax year. So next year they will be fully on the tax rolls, which is one of the main benefits we see as part of this development. We get maybe a reduced taxable value, but then after that abatement's up, the property fully comes on the tax rolls, and all the taxing jurisdictions can fully realize that value. For non-Catalyst property tax abatements, there are a few compliance requirements. Apologies for the small text on there. Mainly their compliance is involved with the cumulative capital investment that they put into the project, the amount of full-time employees that they hired over the course of the project. They had to meet a minimum of the 2021 wage floor for the county, as well as reach a target of employer-provided healthcare. And so for the Grandstand project, which just wrapped up, and the Sunlight project, both companies did meet compliance last year. This is just an overview table of the abatement amounts per year for a lot of our projects. On the left-hand side is the traditional abatements, and then the right-hand side, the bigger categories are Catalyst abatements. And you can see for U.S. Engineering, Van Trust, and Standard Beverage, the The abatement period starts the tax year after the project is completed. So for U.S. Engineering, they wrapped up earlier this year. So their first abatement year will be tax year 2023. Industrial revenue bonds. I don't think we're too unfamiliar with that, but just as a reminder, it's a conduit financing mechanism for businesses or developers to obtain a property tax abatement or a sales tax exemption for project materials. Because of the way the statute is written, there's no liability on the city's portion to purchase or pay back the bonds. There's no obligation for the city to finance the project in any way. For neighborhood revitalization areas, this is one of those property tax rebates that works on the increment. And so it's based on the incremental increase in property value subject to the NRA rebate itself. The base property tax value is shielded. So whenever the rebate period starts, whatever the taxing jurisdictions had collected at that point in time, that we will, at the very minimum, they will all receive that amount per year. And as part of the NRA, as part of the statute, the city, county, and school district each decide the level of their participation in terms of the percentage of rebate on their specific mill levy. For NRAs, we have a total of 7. And so in the report, you'll see we have a long list of we've had some that are at least 8 or 10 years old. So, but for the total of 7 that we have right now, the total tax revenues realized combined for all of these projects right now is roughly $1.2 million. And that number that you see on the left, that base value, is essentially the collective tax revenue that would have been collected if the city had not provided the NRA tax rebate to redevelop these properties. So because of the city's involvement and participation, we've seen roughly an 86% growth in taxable revenue from these properties. Tax increment financing works on pledging future gains in sales or property tax, similar, essentially working on the increment as well, to finance improvements which will result in tax gains. Different from the NRA, the TIF, the tax increment financing mainly works on ground level infrastructure improvements. And so similar to the NRA, it does work on the increment. The base property value is shielded, and it is used to kind of defray some of the developer costs that are normally paid upfront, and then the reimbursement helps them pay back kind of the debt service on their project costs. Currently, we have 3 TIF areas. We have the Downtown 2000 project, the Oriad, which mainly covers the Oriad Hotel area next to the university, and 9th and New Hampshire, which covers between the 900 and 800 block of that street. The total distributions for all 3 of those projects over the course of their years is roughly $1 million. And then similar to the NRAs, the percent participation from each district most of the time is not a full 100%. So we do see on that increment, the city, the county, and the school district do see some increased value over the time. So this is resulting in that $189,000 number you see at the bottom.
That is the 5% that we retain for the
That's what apology. Britt's feeling a little under the weather, so we're just having a little making sure. So for the TDDs, it's a special taxing jurisdiction, which adds up to a 1% sales tax increase for the TDD districts. As the name says, it's mainly focused on creating transportation improvements. So the TDD districts we have right now are the Bower Farm Free State area over by Free State High School. The Oriad and the 9th and New Hampshire districts are a combination of TIF and TDD districts. The distributions, you can see it's roughly $400,000 over the time. And a little bit different for sales tax. The city retained amount for this, for the transportation development districts, mainly came through an agreement with the 9th and New Hampshire district to maintain a certain amount for the Arts Common project. So overall performance for these projects, we have roughly for every $1 spent from the public, we see a value of roughly $6. So we're looking at, a 600% rate of return on these projects, with a total public investment of $2.7 million and total private investment at roughly $16.7 million. And then lastly, those direct support programs, those agencies that we had talked about before, the city's participation with each of these organizations is on the right-hand side, as you can see there. And like I said, like I mentioned before, these projects are mainly, these agencies mainly help the city in kind of achieving some of the activities that we wouldn't be able to normally do on our own with just our small team of Britt and I. So for the committee and for anybody else in the public who sees this at a later time, you can find the report right on the city's website. It'll be lawrence.org/ED. We recommend you go through the full report. It's a lot more detailed than the presentation we gave today, but we wanted to make sure everyone is able to see it in a more manageable form today. So.
Great. Thank you, Sam. Does anyone have any questions on the report?
This is Kate Lorenz. I just wanted to say thank you for the more manageable overview. That was really helpful. I appreciate it.
Yep, no problem.
Anyone else? Now, do we have to vote on making this presented to the City Commission, or was this just informational?
The way we did it this year, just because of the timeline, because we internally have a timeline to present it to the commission. So I think at this point it was just to present to you all in the committee.
Great. All right. Any other questions on the report before we move to public comment? I appreciate you guys putting that together. It was very easy to understand, so thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any individuals there, Sam, for public comment?
There's no one in the room.
All right. Anyone online for public comment? All right. The only public comment I saw was the letter that came over yesterday for the project that we've already voted on. Does anybody on the committee have any additional questions before we adjourn?
I would just, really quick, Chairman, I would just make a comment. Just as a reminder, our next PERC meeting is currently scheduled for December 16th. That is a Friday, so we do appreciate everyone being able to make that. At that meeting, we will be discussing the crossing project presented by KU Endowment through the development corporation they formed. That project will be a tax increment financing district combined with a community improvement district, which we have not seen in Lawrence before. So I did send everyone a while ago a review of our bond counsel who had presented to the City Commission, a review of what both of those incentives are, what the process is like, and what the how the mechanisms of those improvements work. I can certainly send it again just so that everyone has it on there, but I would highly recommend, since we do have that we want to be able to talk about the project as much as possible rather than covering the details of what a TIF or a CID is that day. So I would encourage everyone to go watch that presentation. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email Britt or I. We'd be happy to catch you up to speed before we go into that meeting in December.
Great. So we all have some homework between now and December 16th. Anything else for the committee? Questions?
This is
All right.
Brad. This is Brad. I'd move that we accept the report as presented.
We don't have to vote on it, right, Sam?
Sorry.
I don't think it would hurt if they want to vote on it.
Yeah, we don't think it would hurt, just so that we have an item to put in the minutes for this meeting. Do you want to do that?
All right, so we have a motion on the table from Brad to accept the report as presented. Any seconds?
This is Adam. I second the motion.
All right, now take a roll call vote. Brad,
Aye.
Adam,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
Christina,
Aye.
Patrick,
Aye.
Kay,
Aye.
and I am an aye. So we have 8 in favor to accept the 2021 annual report for economic development support and compliance. So thank you for putting that together, City. And on that note, do we want to go ahead and adjourn, or is there anything else for discussion? All right, then I deem this meeting adjourned. I hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving, and we will be together again in December.
Yep. Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Aye.
Bye-bye.